Hello, friends. I have a reading today for you as somebody who is coming into your manifesting abilities, but you are still learning how to flow with, how the manifestations are coming in the physical. If you hear any background noise during this reading, please just kind of bear with me. Unfortunately, my living circumstances right now, I don't really have control over noise, but I can't let that stop me from being able to deliver these messages. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I actually have two cards, two Fae, that are guiding our reading today. The first is the Master Maker. The Master Maker carries the energy of both the Magician and the Eight of Pentacles, right? You have developed your skills, you have the tools, you have what it takes to create the thing that you want for yourself, but there's still this element of practice, putting in the repetition, developing your skills further, becoming a little better each day as you continue to put in the work. And second, I have, a little tricky to cover this, the Bright Mother. Okay, the Bright Mother is very much Mother Earth, the Empress. This is the divine feminine incarnate. This is form. This is how things are manifesting. The container that we have to grow in, the container that we have to learn, to practice, to try new things, to explore, that safety, that allows us to be able to grow as individuals. All right, starting out, I have the Four of Pentacles. This is that energy of containment, of structure, maybe that kind of miserly energy. Whatever you are manifesting right now, whatever you're creating for yourself, rightfully so, you had to create some kind of a boundary, some kind of a border. Maybe you don't want somebody to spoil your work, or maybe you're trying to create some sort of a structure that allows you to more successfully build or create the thing that you want in your reality. All right. Now, you have come to this point where, though, you need to move into this energy of the sun, this freedom, this renewed joy, this energy of this little baby here, this rebirth, right? Maybe, yes, you have created a certain reality for yourself. You've created a certain manifestation, but you need to be more open to just kind of the natural flow of how things go, right? Like babies, they're not out there, thinking like, I got to do this, I got to do that. They're just in the moment, kind of allowing their support to be there for them and just kind of being in this moment of, just like experience of absorbing, right? And you have this brand new potential, right? When we have this Six of Wands here, the Six of Wands in this deck, you have these two boys here that, like he's got this little dragon, this egg that they had together, and he's celebrating and he's really happy, about this little baby dragon, whereas this little elf here, he's not too happy about it. And this gives me the impression that like you are starting something new, or that you have birthed something new, but somebody else around you isn't too pleased about you getting the success, about you getting the thing, about you succeeding in whatever it is. And this is probably where you had this Four of Pentacles energy, where you felt you needed to guard yourself and protect, whatever it is that you're building. And this is perfectly fine, like you do have this initial kind of protection that you needed for yourself, but that's coming to an end. The difficulties are coming to a completion, this Ten of Swords, right? You don't have an 11 of Swords after the Ten of Swords. You just move right into, the court cards in the suit, right? The Ten of Swords is this energy of like the difficulties, the problems, whatever. You've reached the very end of it, like you get down to rock bottom and you can't go any further down. There's nowhere to go but up, and we see this rosebud, this blue rosebud, when she's surrounded and pinned, by all these, thorns, this rose plant. This is the new potential. You've got the new thing that it's here and it's ready to open and sprout. You have your manifestation coming in, and then the universe is trying to create a container for you that is a safe environment for that to grow, and that is going to be happening soon, because we have this Ten of Pentacles, right? That, the generational wealth, the family, the community, the connection, the abundance, the sharing, this shows me that there is a safe space coming in for you to be able to create. There's a safe space coming in for you to be able to grow from, to experiment from, to be able to learn without interference from things that, would cause you difficulty to keep you from being able to proceed forward. Maybe you've kind of isolated yourself away for a little bit. You were in hermit mode for a bit. Maybe that is whatever it is you were working on, whatever it is you were building, you were doing it by yourself. You go within, to find the light. You go up to the mountain to find the light, but you always come back ultimately to share it with others, right? When you discover this energy within yourself, when you discover this, capacity, this ability, this gift, that's when you move into the magician. You can take your tools, your knowledge, your inspiration, your emotions, your actions. You can utilize all the things that you've developed for yourself, the skills and understanding that you've discovered that you have in order to create something. And so you decide as the magician what it is that you want to make for yourself, and you made that. Okay, but there is this energy of practice, right? This temperance. The thing is with this, when you continue to practice at whatever you're doing, even if you're already doing the thing, that practice is going to continue this alchemical process. You're pouring from one vessel into the next. This process continues on. Your skills are going to continue to improve. You are going to discover things about yourself, and you are also going to be refined through this process. It's just more kind of a natural way of things. You have the map, this Three of Wands, the two elf boys here looking in this map book. You have an idea of the terrain, the territory. You said, hey, I want to go to this place. And the place exists because, you've had some sort of information, about it, like this map book. But maybe you've never been there before. Your manifestation, when you first plant that seed, is kind of like that, where the thing exists, the possibility, the reality is there for you, but you've only seen the map as opposed to the territory. And this is where you kind of want to let the universe help you out. There's this co-creative kind of process, where you say to the universe, hey, can I have this thing? And then the universe says, okay, I know how to get you there, but I need you to trust me. I need you to let me do my thing. And of course, you got to continue to do yours as well. The Seven of Swords, right? This is that behind the scenes, things going on that you aren't quite aware of. You would think of in the Rider-Waite, Smith deck, you would have the individual taking the swords from the enemy camp so they, can't attack at dawn. What I'm seeing here, is she's feeding this rose with her magical energy. She's watering this rose, but then the rest of the garden is growing up around her, right? Maybe you know how to manifest certain realities for yourself. You've gotten this magical ability to create what you want for yourself. But when you nurture and water whatever it is you're creating for yourself, it has an effect on the rest of the environment around you, right? No person is an island unto themselves. There's nothing in nature that is solitary, right? The trees are connected, the fungi are connected, all the plants and animals. So when you're creating a reality for yourself, you end up also creating other things that are going on in the world around you, whether you feel that they're affecting you directly or not. They're all interconnected, right? And this kind of creates like a feedback loop with this Eight of Pentacles, right? You have that practice, you putting in the repetition. In this deck, we have this fairy girl here, after she, developed this friendship with these mice who helped her out back when she was in the Five of Pentacles type of energy. She taught them how to weave these baskets, and then they're taking that knowledge and using it to, kind of think about like how they can improve their nest making, and they give feedback too. So like when you create something for yourself, the universe is going to give you feedback, right? There is going to be some sort of a reflection, some sort of an action creating a reaction from the world around you. And if you pay attention while you're, growing and putting into practice, you can learn from this feedback to be able to help you improve your skills, to make it where, maybe the next basket you create, is a little bit stronger than the one before it, or a little bit more pretty, or, whatever it is. You can continue to improve based off of this feedback that, is coming from life around you. This co-creative process is kind of like a give and take. You take a step, the universe takes a step. And then, we get into this creative process, and, we're connecting to the possibilities and realizing that, since our actions are relating to the world around us and that there is an effect, we start to kind of really daydream, what are the possibilities, right? This 7 of Cups, you could be thinking there could be adventure, there could be love, there could be wealth, whatever the case being, right? You realize that, like, oh, because I have the ability to create this thing for myself, I can really create whatever I want. You're kind of really thinking about what are the possibilities, what are the things that you can create, and you're looking within, and you kind of get in touch with this primal energy with the devil, right? This satyr here, he is so absolutely in touch with who he is at his core, at his most natural level. So this is giving me the impression that as you're looking in and you kind of are imagining the possibilities, what you're doing is you're looking at, an inner level of reality that is that core base essence of who you are, that primal energy, that primordial soup, so to speak, and when you connect with this, you realize, considering how absolutely vast it is, that you will never, quote unquote, be the master. And you don't need to be the ultimate master of something, right? The goal here is for you to become better than you were yesterday, for you to continue to improve and grow, right? We move into this Knight of Swords reversed. In this deck, the Knight of Swords is, the practiced, skilled, disciplined, individual who has mastered their abilities, they're fit, they are ready, all right? Yes, it is absolutely fine for you to develop the skills. It's absolutely beautiful, wonderful for you to develop that competence, but you got to remember that you are always learning, right? When I was talking about this energy of the sun, this renewed joy, this conscious choice for you to, move in a way that says, like, hey, there's always more for me to learn. There's always more room for me to grow. You move into that, perpetual beginner kind of a mindset. And you don't really want to kind of be in this 5 of Swords, this, winning at all costs type of an energy, because you have discovered, like I said, with that 10 of Swords, or, whatever, that your actions do not exist alone. Like that when you get into a war energy, that you create, those kinds of reactions in the world around you, and that might not be what you want to create for yourself. So you move from this 7 of Cups energy, imagining what are the possibilities, what could be, what if I have this, what if I have that, and you kind of start to focus really more and center, and instead of imagining what are the possibilities, when you go into this energy of the priestess, the high priestess, instead of like what is there, what could be there, you look and you see, okay, this is what exists for me immediately in my inner world. This is my gift. This is my talent and my intuition, right? An oak tree isn't always an oak tree, and they're not needing to be a maple tree. You don't need to have all the things, that you would be imagining in that 7 of Cups. When you move into this high priestess energy here, this more focused inner direction, this more focused inner, kind of way of experiencing yourself, what you come to realize is what's your gifts. Your intuition, her intuitive ability is going to show you your unique way of expressing yourself, your unique way of being in the world, and like your place in it. And you'll naturally just kind of move more in harmony with the rhythms of life because of that. All right, I have the Ace of Swords reversed, okay? The Ace of Swords could be that, that new idea, that inspiration, that focus, that clarity. In this deck, The Ace of Swords is more of like a hubris type of a card, all right? You had this fairy kingdom, they had this beautiful magical rose garden that, affected the well-being of, their people. When, things were beautiful in the rose garden, it was beautiful for the people. When things were down in the garden, it was down for the people. And so they decided to, make this magical sword to harness the energy, to harness this power, so that way they could create the reality they want for themselves, and only that. They wanted all the ups, but none of the downs. Well, when you come into this, this Ace of Swords reversed in this case, what you've come to realize is that you don't need to control all of reality. You don't need to control exactly how everything is going to go, right? You know that the ups and downs are natural and part of life, and that they're perfectly fine and good and wonderful and beautiful. Not in the sense that, like all the terrible tragedies in and of themselves are, fantastic and wonderful, but you come into this mentality to where you understand that, like, if I'm presented with a challenge in life, I can use this for my growth. If I'm presented with something fantastic in my life, I can use this for my growth. And you don't feel the need anymore to pin down, saying that this and this alone has to be exactly this kind of way, right? You come into this Eight of Wands reversed. The Eight of Wands would be that quick moving energy, the quick communication, the fairy boy here riding the dragon in this, story. When the dragon, when it grew up, it started to become more than they could handle. And, he felt like, I got to get away, I've got to leave. And he just took off. You don't feel this flighty energy anymore. You don't feel the need to, like, instantly go and instantly get the results, right? You can slow down. You can enjoy the moment. You can be where you are. And, maybe we get this little temptation, where we're in this Four of Cups energy where it's like, hey, I have these things. Obviously, my manifestation is creating the reality, that I asked for in certain ways, but maybe it's not the way I want, right? You would think of the individual sitting under the tree meditating. He's got 3 cups in front of him, and then the one off to the side being offered that he's either not paying attention to or isn't aware of yet, right? Maybe you've come to, a certain point in your manifestation where while things are unfolding, you're kind of like, hey, when is it my turn? I asked for the thing, and then I'm allowing the universe to kind of just allow things to unfold and create the reality. And then maybe you're getting a little bit upset about, like, hey, this manifestation isn't turning out exactly the way I want. But that cup off to the side being offered could be something absolutely beautiful and fantastic and wonderful. Like, you created the 3 cups in front of you, and then the universe has got this one, like, oh, and here's a little bonus for you, but maybe you don't want that bonus because you don't think it's fantastic or you don't think it's what you wanted. But if you give yourself a chance to, accept it and peer in that cup, not only is it going to be the thing you asked for, but it's going to be a better version of the thing you asked for. You might be like, hey, I need enough money so that I'm prepared for the worst. But what if you get enough money that you could be prepared for the best? It's like a difference between I have enough money for an emergency versus I have enough money to go on that vacation. Both of those cases are the universe providing you more money than you have, but maybe you thought smaller than what you deserve, and the universe is like, well, yeah, you wanted those 3, and I've got this extra for you because you deserve more, because you are worth more, okay? All right, you come into this King of Wands, though, right? It's like, okay, well, things aren't exactly the way I want, so I'm going to focus my attention back into this. I'm going to really kind of get into this active manifesting type of an energy again. And this is kind of like where we end up, like interrupting the process or sidestepping the process of our manifestation, and ends up being this Queen of Cups reversed, right? This, it's like suddenly we're out of this attractive energy, right? We asked for the thing, we want to attract it in, but because we chose to be, a little bit more active on the manifestation again when we had already put that in before, and now it was just our turn to let the universe give to us. That can kind of like interfere a little bit. And that's not to say that you won't take action. You will get action at times. You will have this inspired action, this Ace of Wands, right? The thing is, if you're moving with the intuition, if you're moving with the flow, the universe is still going to communicate to you saying, hey, this is the time to move forward. This is the action that is going to help with this situation, whatever the type of thing like that. You know, you want to move with the cycles, this Three of Cups, you know, this celebration of the moving with the cycles. You know, you got these, you know, nymph girls that are, you know, they're enjoying themselves, you know, kind of, you would think of this as like you would see in the Rider-Waite-Smith, the three women, each with their cups, and they're dancing and celebrating, and each of the cups being, you know, a different phase of the moon. So you want to celebrate the phases that you're in, right? You know, the moon's not always full, and it's not always, you know, a new moon. You have this waxing and waning. So sometimes you are going to be on the receptive end, and sometimes you're going to be on the more active end. And when you're in that receptive end, allow yourself to be there, and eventually you will naturally come to a point where you know it's time to take action. And that'll bring you into this Queen of Swords reversed, right? The Queen of Swords, I like to think of the Queen of Swords as the single queen, right? The King of Swords has gone off to war. He's not directly within the kingdom taking action and ruling as a king. So the Queen of Swords, she's had to move into a certain amount of masculinity within herself to be able to fulfill that role that the king would normally be fulfilling within the kingdom if he were present and not out to war. She's still feminine, you know, the Queen of Swords. A lot of people would think of her as the witch of the tarot with a B. And, you know, if you cross her, that certainly can be the case, but she's not negative. She's clear. She has good, healthy boundaries. She knows how much she can give and communicates to people, hey, I can do this much for you, but I can't do more than that. All right? This single queen energy. But if you have this reverse and you allow yourself to receive, you allow yourself to move into the flow, then you don't end up having an imbalance, and you are able to receive, and you are able to be supported and get the help that you need to make your reality grow. All right, friends, I hope this is helpful for you. If it is, go ahead and leave a like for me. Drop me a comment. If you don't know what to comment, you can leave a sunflower emoji. Sunflowers are a spirit guide of mine that'll let me know that you see me, and that also helps the algorithm quite a lot. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the bell icon and click on all. The algorithm these days doesn't guarantee you're going to see a video just because you're subscribed. Head into my channel, find a video that resonates with you, or you can go to my community section. I've got a pinned post to where you can ask me a question and I'll make a reading for you. All right, friend, I will see you in the next one.